Hello, this is Yogeshwar 7000 again, and I'm back with my series on retrograde planets. So far, we have discussed Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde, so I'll recommend people who have not watched to please refer to those as regards to Mercury and Venus is concerned. And today we will be talking about Jupiter retrograde. So what exactly is retrograde? Well, as we know that planets jump from one zodiac to the other in the anti-clockwise direction when we consider the North Indian chart. And so they'll move from the first house to the second house to the third house, similarly from one zodiac to the next zodiac in the anti-clockwise direction. Say, for example, just to give you an example, if it's the planet Mercury and it's sitting in the zodiac sign of Cancer, the next movement of Mercury will be in Leo, and then the next movement will be in Virgo, so crossing every 30 degrees. So that happens with all the planets except, of course, the planets Rahu and Ketu, which move in the opposite direction. So if Rahu is sitting in Leo and Ketu is sitting right opposite to it in Aquarius, then the next movement of Rahu is going to be from Leo to Cancer, so in the reverse direction. And similarly, Ketu's movement will be from Aquarius to Capricorn, also in the reverse direction, since they are just opposite to each other. Other than Rahu and Ketu, Sun and Moon are always direct, meaning which in a birth chart or in transits, you will never see them moving in the opposite direction. They'll always move from the first house to the second house, the second to the third, not in the reverse direction. Or any zodiac sign, say for example from Scorpio to Sagittarius and so on and so forth, they'll always move in the forward direction, or which it's called in Sanskrit margi, or direct in English. And retrograde in Sanskrit is called vakri, which is actually moving in the opposite direction. But actually, as I've already explained you in my previous videos, there's nothing called a retrograde. Planets, all the planets go around the sun, and they all go in the direct motion. Then why do they appear to be retrograde in a birth chart? Because sitting here from the planet Earth, when we draw a chart, since all the planets are going around the sun, the planet sun, because we consider sun as a planet in Vedic astrology. So all the planets are going around sun, and sitting here from the planet Earth in relative motion, it appears at times that certain planets are going in the reverse direction. They're actually not going the reverse direction, but sitting here, since we are looking at them in relative terms, since Earth is also going around sun and it's in motion, and other planets are also in motion, there are times when some planets appear to go in the reverse direction. They don't go in the reverse direction, but in relative terms, sitting here from the planet Earth, when we draw a chart, they appear to go in the reverse direction. And the most interesting part, as I've already explained in my previous video, is that when these planets, and these planets are 5 planets, because Sun and Moon will never appear to be retrograde, and Rahu and Ketu, which are not even visible, they are always moving in the retrograde direction, or the opposite direction. There are only 5 planets: Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, Mars, and Venus. 5 planets will appear to move in the reverse direction, or retrograde direction. So the interesting part, like I was telling you, is that whenever these planets appear to move in the opposite direction or are in retrograde direction, as we see in the birth chart, their effects are not the same as compared to if these planets were in direct motion. So a Vakri planet or a retrograde planet will have different effects as compared to a direct planet or a margi planet, as it's called in Sanskrit. And that's why it becomes extremely critical to study the effects of retrograde planets. So today we are discussing about Jupiter retrograde. And what does Jupiter signify? Jupiter signifies fame, success, wealth, religion, spirituality, progeny. All these are significations of the planet Jupiter. So whenever Jupiter goes retrograde, these significations of the planet Jupiter are considered to be adversely affected, or affected rather, but some astrologers say as a general rule that the significations of the planet Jupiter, which are religion, spirituality, wealth, progeny, wisdom, the real knowledge, all these significations are adversely affected according to some astrologers. And they have generalized it that whenever Jupiter is retrograde in a birth chart or in transits, these significations will be adversely affected, meaning which that a person in whose birth chart we see a Jupiter retrograde will see negative effects related to these significations. Now, this is not true. A retrograde planet is when it's at a point when it's nearest to the planet Earth. So when it's nearest to the planet Earth, it actually exerts its maximum influence. Some astrologers say that it becomes strong. It doesn't become strong, but its influence on humans becomes multifold, just because of the fact that at that point of retrogression, it is at the closest distance from the planet Earth. So that is one. The second thing is, not always a retrograde planet gives negative effects, as mentioned by a lot of astrologers related to its signification. So it will not always have negative effects. Now, since Jupiter is a natural benefic, in case its influence on humans becomes strong because of its retrogression, then practically speaking, logically speaking, the benefic effects of the planet Jupiter should also increase multifold. But again, this is also not true, because a lot of things have to be seen in the chart as to whether the planet Jupiter is a benefic for that person or not, whether the planet Jupiter is actually a functional malefic. So in that case, if its influence is, it increases, then obviously the influence, the bad influence or the negative influence will also increase. But if in case Jupiter is a benefic, a functional benefic for that planet, for that person whom we are studying the chart for, then its influence in its retrogression motion, because the influence increases once it's in a retrograde motion, the benefic effects also should increase multifold. But again, this is also not true. There are rules described by the ancient scriptures and the ancient sages when a planet, regardless of its natural benefic or a natural malefic nature, will exert a positive influence or a negative influence. And I'm going to have a separate video on that and discuss in details. But yes, a retrograde planet generally raises a red flag. We have to look at it, but not always does it become a negative influence. And sometimes it can give a positive influence as well. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Once again, I will recommend, do not generalize the effects of a retrograde planet, whether it's good or bad, or it's always bad. You have to look at on a case-by-case basis how that planet is placed, whether it's a benefic or not a benefic for that person's birth chart. And also we have to look into the rules given by the ancient sages and the ancient scriptures as to when and under what conditions a retrograde planet has to be considered negative. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. In the meanwhile, I will recommend subscribe to my channel and check out my website. There is a link below, and I will see you with an interesting topic soon. Thank you.